examples of each and every one of these positions. You're held accountable for 9 option positions. Here are the first 4. Next Thursday, we'll do 3 more, therefore a total of 7. Told you there's 9. And that last Thursday, we'll do spreads and straddles, and those are what you're held accountable for. All right, so here's the matrix again. And we're going to be able to fill out the rest of the matrix in all its glory. If I haven't said it already, when we get this completely filled out, I would have it memorized. And I'd be able to go in there and do my exam, what I call a data dump with my matrix. Okay, so we're going to go long a call. So if we're looking at an order ticket, here's an order ticket. What are we going to mark in this order ticket if what we're going to do is go long a call? We're going to check which box. We're going to check this box. Boom. And we're going to check that box. Because remember, opening purchases are how we establish that. Right? So we're going to do an opening purchase. All right. So let's do our opening purchase on this position. And here's the first of our 4 positions. We're going to go long 1 Apple, December 170, call at 9. Let's put this in test phraseology. Your customer goes long 1 Apple, December 170, call at 9, when Apple's at 172. Please note, it doesn't matter where Apple's at when we do this trade. It doesn't matter where Apple. Where it matters is where Apple is at expiration. Apple's at. That's what we care about. Or several weeks later, Apple's at. That's what we care about. So we don't really care that Apple right now is 172. We said one of our great memory aid devices. Do you remember one of our great memory aid devices? Call up. Call up. So call up is not only good for intrinsic value, right? So we said we can use call up to determine intrinsic value. So for example, we said call up. Apple's 172, call up. So the market price is up from the strike price. That has 2 points of intrinsic value. But we can also do that for break even, call up. So one way to proceed on break evens is just to simply memorize call up. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to illustrate it to you, but boom. And it's always expressed as a per share number, right? And so now I'm just going to illustrate this to you. I like to use dollars out, dollars in, whatever floats your boat. Some people like to use pluses and minuses. Some people like to use debit or credit. Now, I'm not going to put $900 into my dollar out box. And the reason I'm not putting $900 in there is because I just told you that break even is expressed as a per share number. And I would suggest you do things on a per share basis and then multiply it in. I'll show you what I mean by that. So is that 9 points? Is that 9 points? By the way, the other thing I would recommend you do, it's a buffet. If you don't like something, don't put it on your tray. But the other thing I would suggest is maybe when you get an option like just underneath, right? Okay, what am I looking at? You're looking at a choice or right to buy the stock at the strike price. Sometimes that's helpful just to kind of, keep in mind what's going on here in terms of what's happening. So, maybe I put that there just to remind myself what's going on. All right. So is that 9? Is that 9 points out or 9 points in? That 9 points. That is 9 points out. Right. And so, if I'm good at my T, if I'm good at tracking money in and out, and I'm good at contract specifications, I don't need to memorize anything. If I say, okay, well, for that 9 points, I can buy the Apple at 170. And break even is the same dollars out as dollars in. Nobody does things to break even. Nobody does things to break even. But what I could do now is just shop my answer set on the test. And I know that whatever number they offer me has to make these columns balance, because that's what break even is. Break even is same dollars in as dollars out, right? So I could just shop my answer set, and maybe they offer me as choice B. They say on the test, choice B is 179. And they're offering me that as my break even. And then I plug that into my T and I say, okay, let me see if that works. Boom. Indeed, that is the break even. I'm just illustrating that indeed 179 is the break even. Nobody does things to break even. So the other thing we need to know is where do we want the market price to be in relationship to that? Because we certainly don't want to break even. Well, if we have a choice to buy the stock, buying the stock is ultimately, test question, bullish. So we're going to want that market price of Apple to be above 179. And that's something as well that we have to be able to do. Boom. Any questions on the break even in a call contract? By the way, good news for us as test takers, it's going to be the same call up, whether you're long or short, it's still going to be strike price plus. Call up. All right, well, let's look at our max gain and our max loss. So that's what we got to be able to do in all of these positions is we got to be able to do the break even, and then we got to be able to do max gain, max loss. So, okay, here we go, maximum gain. There is finite supply of Apple represented by the authorized shares, and there's potential infinite demand. And so, woo, you know, if you exercise this contract and you buy Apple at 170, you would be out 179. And what might Apple be trading at? You know, long calls sound good. How with limited reward would you like unlimited risk? Or excuse me, how with limited risk would you like unlimited reward? How with as little as $900 would you like to control tens of thousands of dollars worth of stock? Well, this sounds pretty decent. Sounds pretty decent. Let's try a couple examples of test phraseology. So let's try a couple examples of test phraseology. Again, I like to put the number on the test in question either above or below my strike. So here we go with test phraseology. Your customer goes long one Apple December 170 call at 9 when Apple's at 172. What do we say about 172? Who cares? It doesn't matter where Apple's at when we do this trade. It matters where Apple's at the end. They say at expiration, Apple's 188. Are you going to exercise your 170 call if Apple is at 188? Yes or no? Are you going to exercise that call contract? Yeah. And by the way, if you're foolish enough not to, we'll do it for you. We'll say, well, listen, I don't know why in the heck you would not want to exercise a 170 call with the stock at 188. So now if we sell that at 188, woo, we are big time winners. Ah, boy, I just made up that, by the way. The test made up the 188. And now we could just simply net that, and that would be our profit or our loss. In this case, profit. Could it have been better? Could it have been better? Yes or no? Could you have made even more money than this? Yeah. Yeah, if 188 is good, 198 is even better. 208 better still. Let's do different phraseology. Here we go again with different phraseology. So it's the same thing again. So be careful here. So, boom. Your client goes long Apple December 170 call at 9 when Apple's at 172. What do we say about that? What did we say about the idea of Apple being at 172? Does not matter, right? What matters is the next piece of this. Several weeks later, last time I said at expiration. This time I'm saying several weeks later. There's a distinction in that phraseology. Please note, by the way, you don't have to be able to do a T here. You could simply just compare your break even of 179 to 188 and say it's 9 points in the right direction. You know, you could do that if you want to memorize break evens. I'd warn you, Natasha, I'm not picking on Natasha, but remember she was talking about advanced option strategies. Now is the point where there's a fork in the road. And I would just tell you that if you go down the memory road, the amount of things you're going to have to memorize is going to continue to compound. So I am a believer. Again, you got to be careful about having too many voices in your head, but I'm a believer in understanding it. Because if you understand it, then you don't need to memorize a bunch of stuff, right? So I think that'd be better. Okay, back to our phraseology. Your customer goes long one Apple, December 170 call at 9, when Apple's at 172. Several weeks later, with Apple at 188, your customer closes out at intrinsic value. Remember, I warned you about that phraseology? You close out at intrinsic value. Now, be careful. I'm not asking what is the intrinsic value. I'm asking if you close out for that number, what is the gain or loss, right? So we did here an opening purchase at 9 points or $900. And so now they're saying you do your closing sale for intrinsic value. So what is the intrinsic value of a 170 call with Apple at 188? What is the intrinsic value of a 170 call with Apple at 188? Right, where we're trying to solve for here. Remember, this is what we're solving for, is what we're closing out at. Nobody wants to venture a guess about what's going in there. What is the intrinsic value? Remember, call up. The market price is 188. It's definitely up from 170. Yeah. Now, be careful. That's not the answer. 18 is not the answer. All right. They said your client goes long one Apple, December 170 call at 9, when Apple's 172. Several weeks later, closes out at intrinsic value. What is the gain or loss? Right? So the gain or loss is an 18. The gain or loss is the difference, right? And so you would tell me on the test that this person made 9 points or $900. Please note, again, pay attention. One reason people buy options is leverage. Making a little money, do a lot. Natasha, Apple today is 172. And if you bought Apple at 172 and it went to 188, you would be a happy camper. You know, I'll just do that on my calculator. This is not testable. But if you buy the stock at 172 and you sell it at 188, you would have made 16 points, and you would have spent 172 to do that. You would have made a 9.5% return. Not bad. Boy, but trading the option, you didn't make a 9% return. You doubled your money. You made 100%. So one reason people buy options is leverage. Making a little money, do a lot. Now, I'd warn you, the same supercharged speed you make money with is the same supercharged speed you're going to lose money with. Right? And that's our last question. I think the last question is pretty straightforward. What can you lose? Right? 170 or lower? 170 or lower? Contract expires, worthless? Oh, well. So hopefully that wasn't your rent money. I'm joking, but you know, hopefully that was your play money. For everybody, that's a little different. You know, I joke, wouldn't it be funny if casinos really were like our business? If it was really like our business, you know, before we'd let you gamble, we'd say, well, listen, how much are you willing to lose in this particular visit? You know, and we'd say, I give you a gambling disclosure document of all the bad things that can happen to you. And now on your test, they'd never say 9 points or 900. They're just remember that 9 points. You know, that's 9 points. That's 9 points on a contract governing 100 shares. So you would tell me $900 would be the maximum loss here. Remember, that's the multiplier. Yeah, let's make that a little bigger here. And so our max loss here is $800, or excuse me, $900. I'm not sure I understand that. Is there any circumstance? No, there's no circumstance in which writers forcing anything. The writers are the potential victims, right? So you can't force nothing. You're a potential victim, right? If you don't want to be a potential victim, then don't take the money, right? But no, there's no circumstance in which writers can force exercise. You get exercised. You get exercised. All right, well, some people are visual, so let me just show you a visual representation of this. So here's the call contract we're working on, and there's our 170 call, and so our break even was here 179. And we said at 179, we break even. And we said nobody does things to break even. We do things to make money. And so we kind of said, as a break even, that what we want is for this to be above here, right? Because if it's above here, let me make that green. Yeah, let's get it. Boom. Come on. There we go. Okay, so we want it to be here. If we go here, boom, we're going to make some money, right? You know, to be right about an option, kind of hard to be right about an option because you got to be right about three things here. You got to be right about direction. You're saying up. You know, you got to be right about how far up. You're saying at least 9 points up because you got to cover your out-of-pocket cost. And you got to be right about the timing. All this is going to take place between now and December. And so that's why it's incredibly difficult. But if you do get it right, like as we said, 188, that's like the trifecta, you know. So in between here, you lose money, but not your entire premium because the contract still has some intrinsic value. So, you know, here you're a loser. You know, below here, you lose everything, right? No intrinsic value. All right, so that's a long call. So we did a long call. So what do you think I'm going to show you next? A short call, and the short call is going to be this opposite relationship here, right? You know, so, you know, it's not like you have half as much to learn if that dawns on you that the other side, every strategy has its opposite. All right, so let's get going on this one. Let me clean up my slides. Boom. And let's look at our short call. So tonight we're going over our 4 basic option positions. And let's see, I got to get rid of that. Oh. There's our matrix again. And now we can fill in our matrix in this quadrant. So now let's fill in some of the stuff we had missing in our matrix. So in this matrix now we can fill in the max gain. Now let's put that here. The max gain is unlimited. And let's put that in green to represent money. And we can add to our matrix here that this is a bullish strategy, that we want Apple to go up. And we can add our break even, which is strike price plus premium. And what did Dean say you should probably do with the matrix? Memorize it. Boom. So if you didn't have any clue what you were saying, you just simply memorize the matrix. And I say, what can you tell me about a long call? You say, Dean, when you're long a call, you paid a premium. You have a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. Your max gain is unlimited. Your max loss is a premium. You're bullish, and your break even is strike price plus premium. You may not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. Well, what I suggest you do with the matrix, memorize it. All right, let's look at a short call. Let's look at a short call. So every strategy has its opposite. And so we're going to do a short call, right? What are we going to do? Opening purchase or an opening sale? If what we're establishing is a short position, what are we going to do? We're going to, on our order ticket, here's our order ticket. Are we going to check opening purchase or opening sale to establish a short position? So this is your order ticket. No, it's an opening transaction, right? To go short, you're going to do an opening sale. Very testable. Remember, opening sales are used to establish or add to short positions. All right, so very testable. All right, here we go. Now, you don't have to do what Dean suggests, but I suggest that you might want to do is underneath the option leg, not testable, but that's called an option leg, is you might want to write what that is. And so short means obligation, short, seller, right? It's either an obligation to sell or an obligation to buy. It's either an obligation to let somebody call the stock away from you, or it's an obligation to let somebody put the stock to you. So I like to underneath this, but this is an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. If I didn't want to do that, I shouldn't have collected the money. That's how you could become a potential victim, is by collecting that money. So I like to put that there. Let's get some test phraseology going. Your customer goes short one Apple, December 170 call at 9, when Apple's at 172. What does 172 have to do with answering this question? Your customer goes short one Apple, December 170 call at 9, when Apple's at 172. What does that have to do with answering this question? Nothing. It doesn't matter where Apple's at when we do the trade. And they say, what's the break even? Again, you can simply remember call up. We said call up is a great way to remember break evens and intrinsic value. Is that 9 points? Is that 9 points money out or money in? Is the 9 points money out or money in? Is the 9 points money out or money in? Yeah, it's money in. And you have an obligation to sell the stock at 170. And so, as we said, break even is the same money out as in. That's what break even is. Same money out as in. So you can kind of shop your answer set and say, okay, I'm looking for a number that would make these columns balance. So here, if I go out in the open market and I have to buy the stock, what kind of a loss can I just get sustained here? So, yeah, because remember, I have to deliver the stock. So if I go out in the open market and I buy the Apple at 179 and I deliver at 170, I still break even, right? I got the same dollars out as dollars in, right? That's the point of the break even. So you can memorize it, or you can just shop your answer set and you say, okay, I know it's a number that if I plug it in there is going to make the columns balance, because that's what it is. If I buy the stock at 179, deliver 170, boom, break even. Nobody does things to break even. We do things to make money. And so, we need to know where we want this to be in relationship to that. And we don't sell stock unless we're bearish. So we want the stock here to be down from 179. So long calls are bullish and short calls are bearish. Short calls are bearish. All right, so max gain. I think max gain is pretty straightforward. I would hope that, it's a kind of a narrative thread that runs through this. Whenever you collect money, the best case is the option contract expires worthless and you get to go neener, neener, neener. You get to keep the money. So 170 or lower, the contract expires and you keep the money. And so here the maximum gain is going to be 9 points or $900, right? 9 points. And you definitely need to know a point is a dollar. And then remember, each of these governs 100 shares. So the maximum gain is 9 points. We're talking about one contract times 100. By the way, and I'm telling you that it's easier to do things on a per share basis. So I wouldn't be putting, for example, I wouldn't be putting 17 grand and 900, because then you have all kinds of zeros floating around. So my recommendation is you do things on a per share basis. And then when you're all done, multiply. By the way, it doesn't matter where it's at, 170 or lower, 168. Be careful you're memorizing break evens, because if you're memorizing the break even 179, nothing wrong with that. But if it's a 169, you say, oh, it's 10 points away. No, 9, there's a floor at 170. 170 or lower, contract expires, neener, neener, neener. Now, guaranteed test question. Don't be a dumb bear. This is a very, very foolish transaction. So there are two types of calls. There's a naked call, uncovered call. That's what we're looking at here. I'm agreeing to deliver stock I do not own. And that is entirely different than when agreeing to buy stock or deliver stock I do own. So it is very testable on both the SIE and Series 7 to distinguish between a covered call next Thursday and a naked call where we're at presently. And that's very testable. I come in your office and say, I want to lose so much money that you in advance can't tell me how much. I say, well, Dean, if you agree to sell stock you don't own, the most you're bringing into your account is 179. but you have an obligation to deliver that stock at 170. So you're going to have to go in the open market and buy the stock. You know, I used to make every client who was trading short options, every client who's short an option, sign a happy letter or a big boy or big girl letter and say, I want you to acknowledge that you understand if you are short a call contract and you get exercised, you're going to be selling the stock at less than the current market price. Right now, the current market price is north of 170 because otherwise you wouldn't be getting exercised. Remember, you said, I choose not to be exercised. You're confused. Now, we said 179 works, but past that, you start to hemorrhage money. So we were looking at, let's just do this. We were looking at this test phraseology. So this test phraseology should sound familiar. Your customer goes short one Apple, December 170 call at 9, when Apple's 172. At expiration, Apple is 188. At expiration, Apple is 188. Now, be careful here. So if you have a 170 call in your account and Apple's 188, are you going to get exercised? The answer is yes. And so you're going to have to go buy the stock at 188 and deliver at 170. And he said, geez, Steve, I lose 18. I go, no, you don't lose 18. You lose 9, because remember, there's 9 already in there. So you say, well, I'm so glad it couldn't have been worser. I said, well, you're a little confused, my friend. It could have been worser. It could have been a lot worser, right? How worser could it get? You know, unlimited. Now, another thing we might say, test for phraseology. So remember there, I said, your customer goes short one Apple, December 170 call at 9 when Apple's 172. At expiration, Apple's 188. You know, if you're going to trade options for me, I'd make it right 1,000 times. Options are a wasting asset. Time value erodes. At expiration, that's where we're at now, an option contract is only worth its intrinsic value. If the contract has intrinsic value, the contract will be exercised. You know, this is a 170 call and Apple's north of 170. This contract is getting exercised. If the contract has no intrinsic value, the contract expires worthless. 999 more times. Okay, now different phraseology. Your customer goes short one Apple, December 170 call at 9, when Apple is 172. Several weeks later, so I didn't say expiration, I said several weeks later, Apple's at 188, Apple's at 188, and your customer closes out for intrinsic value. Your customer closes out at intrinsic value. So remember, how do you close out an opening sale? If you did an opening sale, how do you close out an opening sale? By doing a closing purchase. And they say you're doing this for intrinsic value. And that's why I told you that intrinsic value discussion was important, because that's the phraseology they love to throw around on the test. So be careful what you're being asked. RTFQ, read the full question. I'm not asking you what is the intrinsic value of a 170 call with Apple at 188. The answer to that is 18. That's not the question. The question is, if you close it out for that, what is the gain or loss? And so again, this is going to be a loss. Could that have been worse than 18 points? Could that have been worse than 18 points? Yes or no? Could you have lost more money? Yeah, you know, unlimited, right? Unlimited. Okay, so let's look at a visual representation of that. Some people are visual people. So let's look at a visual representation of what we've discussed. And here's a visual representation. It's the same chart here that we're looking at. Oh, it looks like Dean's got some typos here. So let me fix this. Boom. We're looking at a 170. And that means this is going to be 179. By the way, If you're wondering why the numbers are off, it's because Apple has a very high test question beta. What does that mean? I'm telling you that Apple has a high beta. Apple has a high beta. What does that mean? It's a very volatile stock. So if Apple has a beta of 2 test question, that means it's twice as volatile as the underlying market. You know, either we like volatility or we do not like volatility. Here, we do not like volatility, right? Because, you know, you're either, you know, it's either your friend or your enemy. Here, it's our enemy. So let's put our thing in here. It's just a visual representation, again, of what's going on. And let's put that here. Boom, this represents the break even. And the break even, as we said, is 179. And we said is you're bearish, right? And so that means anywhere in here, you're going to be happy, right? We're on the other side here. So let's put this in green. So we're happy. If it's 179 or lower, we are a winner. If we're wrong, uh-oh. Right? Really a problem. All right, so we've done long call. We've done a short call. Let's clear up our slides. So if you had to guess, if we've done long call and short call, what do you think is next? We've done long call, short call. So what do you think we're doing next? Are we going to be doing, if you had to guess, are we going to be doing an opening purchase or an opening sale next? If you had to guess, we've done a long call, we've done a short call. We said there are 2 types of contracts, calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. So the next thing I'm going to show you now is a long put. A long put. So to do a long put, remember what we're going to do is we're going to do an opening purchase. Opening purchases are what are used to establish or add to a long position. So those are what we use to establish or add to a long position. So here we go. We're filling in our matrix. So we're now going to be working on the bottom part of the matrix. But before we do, let's just fill in the parts that we now can fill in. We said guaranteed test question. You know, if you don't understand this or you get this wrong on the test, you should flunk the entire test. A naked call has unlimited loss potential. That is very testable. Right? We said we're bearish, meaning that we want the stock to go down. So let's put that in our matrix. And we said our break even is strike price plus premium. And we said you should memorize, you should memorize the matrix. What I mean by that is, even if you didn't know anything about a short call, I say, what can you tell me about a short call? You say, Dean, when you're short a call, you've received the premium. You have an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. The max gain is the premium. Max loss is unlimited. You're bearish. And the break even is strike price plus premium. You may not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. Opening always establishes a position. That's correct. And closing is always eliminating the position. That's right. And remember, you're either establishing a long position or a short position. I told you the one I'm going to be showing you now is this one. And that means we're going to be doing an opening purchase. And after I show you that one, we'll conclude our evening. Listen, guys, you know, obviously you think I think this is a fantastic deal you're getting. This is a lot of work for $35. Woo! You know, partly because, you know, I like to have content and I like to be able to share. And people say, well, why? I had somebody the other day, why should I pay for the class if it's just going to be a free replay? I go, well, because you get to ask questions. We have a chat. You get to, you know, talk to other people, and it's less likely you're going to get interrupted. I don't know about you. I start watching videos and, you know, who knows if I actually, you know, make it past the first few minutes, right? So I'm with you, Natasha. I think the group dynamic is better, but, you know, oh well. Anyways, we're going to be talking about a putter and then a puttee. So that's kind of where we're at. So let's get this thing finished up this evening, right? All right. So again, you don't have to follow Dean's advice. God knows. But, you know, one thing I suggest is having some kind of a process. And, you know, the advantage of having a process is then you get better at practice, drilling, and rehearsing. And sometimes you can catch your own mistakes. So what I like to do, particularly on puts, is say that's a choice or a right to sell the stock at the strike price. It's okay. You know, I don't get it, man. I buy it to sell it. I go, those are different it's. When you buy a put contract, dollars out, you're establishing the choice to sell the stock, dollars in. So that's the first thing I like to do. If you only remember one thing about our evening together, call up, put down. We said that is a great mnemonic device. We said this put down is a great mnemonic device for both intrinsic value, but it's also very valuable in terms of break even, right? Is that 9 points money out or money in? That's money out. And so remember, break even is the number that would make the columns balance. And so if I paid 9 points to be able to stick the Apple stock to somebody at 170, because that's what I have a choice to sell at 170. As we said, the break even has got to be a number that would make the columns balance, because that's what break even is, same dollars out as dollars in. So if I buy the Apple stock at 161 and I stick it to somebody at 170, I'd make 9 points. I paid 9 points. I break even. Nobody does things to break even. But remember, that's what break even is. Break even is same dollars out as dollars in, and it's expressed as a per share number. And I'm just illustrating that indeed that is a break even. Right? I got 170 and 170. Nobody does that. So again, am I bullish or bearish? Well, if I have a choice to sell the stock, I'm bearish, meaning I want Apple to be down from that. So please note, ladies and gentlemen, we have just revealed another test question. And here's the test question we just have revealed now. We have revealed that there are two test question. There are two bearish positions. And both of the bearish positions as it relates to the stock is when you either have an obligation to sell the stock or a choice to sell the stock. Both of those, test question, are bearish transactions. Anybody know what we call that as a test question? The way they say that on the test is, what is the same side of the market? What is the same side of the market? What is the bearish or sell side of the options market? And you went on the test would say short call and long put. That's the same side of the market. Now, the reason that's testable is because we only let you have so many contracts on the same side of the market. We have what are called position limits. And those position limits apply to either the sell side, not the option, selling the option, the stock, you know, the sell or bearish side. We have limits on those. So that's another test question for us. All right, back to the trenches. We've established our break even here. As we said, nobody does things to break even. People do things to make money. They do things to make money. So our maximum gain. So I have paid 9 points. I paid 9 points to be able to stick it to somebody, put it to somebody at 170. You know, that's my best case scenario. So what would be the ideal time I'd like to stick it to somebody at 170? So, you know, for me to exercise that contract, I'm going to have to buy the stock and stick it to them, put it to them. As I said, I know my student, oh, that's so unchristian. I go, well, it certainly is. Right. So I'm going to stick it to them at 170. And what would be the ideal time to be doing that? If the stock is what price? Would it be nice if I could get this out of the trash can? Right? Boom. Right? The most I can make is when the stock goes from 170 less the strike price all the way to zero. So you can think of that as strike price less premium to zero, or break even to zero, or you could just think of a break even, and you would tell me on the test $161 a share or 16,100. That would be my max gain. By the way, they won't give you both. They won't express it as both a per share number and a total number, right? But remember, again, this is a mess. I don't think you should do this because it's a mess. I have recommended you do things on a per share basis, and that is our max gain. But hey, let's just try one. Let's do something in between the max gain. As I said, when you buy an option contract, you got to be right about three things. So here we go with test phraseology. Your customer goes long, one Apple, December, 170 put at 9. When Apple's 172. What do we care about that? Do we care about Apple being 172? Yes or no? Does it matter in this question that Apple, when you do the trade, is 172? No, it doesn't matter, right? The next part matters. At expiration, now we care. At expiration, remember, where are we at? 998 more times? If at expiration the contract has intrinsic value, the contract will be exercised. If at expiration the contract has no intrinsic value, it will expire worthless. So let's say that at expiration, let's make up a number, Apple is 152. I just made that up. So if this is the position in your account, you have a choice to sell at 170 and Apple's 152. Are you going to exercise this contract? Are you going to exercise this contract? Yes or no? Yeah, and even if you don't, we'll do it for you. If I'm your broker and I'm looking at your account, I say, listen, what are you asleep at the switch or what? I mean, why would you not want us to do that? In your option agreement, we have limited discretion to actually exercise this for you. So what your broker is going to do is buy the stock at 152 and stick it to somebody at 170. And again, that's pretty profitable. Now, there's a couple ways you could go here. As we said, one thing you can do is you can just memorize break evens, and you could just compare the market price to the break even, in this case, 152, and say, oh, okay, well, that's 9 points in the right direction. So that's not a bad way to go. I mean, memorizing break evens. Do you remember the warning I gave you about memorizing break evens? I mean, that's perfectly legit to just memorize the break evens. There are only two, call up and put down, and simply compare the market price to that. But do you remember the warning I gave you about memorizing things? What was kind of the heads up I gave you if you're going to go down the memory road? If you go down the memory road, what's going to happen? Well, yeah, we can do that next Thursday, Cynthia. There's no stock in this position. That's next Thursday. We're talking about speculators today. Yeah, if you go down that road, you're just going to have to memorize more and more stuff. All right, so this is actually the same question. This is actually the same question, but different phraseology. Yeah, it's trying to get comfortable with the phraseology. So here we go again, test phraseology. Your customer goes long, one Apple, December 170 put at 9 when Apple's at 172. Several weeks later, so now it's not expiration. Several weeks later, Apple is 152. And you close out at intrinsic value. You close out at intrinsic value. By the way, what I like to do on my official Prometric Scratch is actually put the market price above or below the strike so I can make the analysis a little quicker, right? So I'm either putting it above or below. And so be careful what you're being asked. You're not being asked, what is the intrinsic value of a 170 put with Apple 152? That's not what you're being asked. That's 18 points. That's not the question. The question is, if you close it out for that number, what is the gain or loss? So again, what they're saying is we did an opening purchase here at 8, or excuse me, at 9. And now we're saying we're going to close it out. Remember, that's how we close out, is by doing a closing sale. And so now they're saying that we're doing this closing sale at intrinsic value. right? So again, just phraseology. Yeah, the answer is that that's a 9-point gain. And remember, they won't give you both 9 points or 900. They'll give you one or the other. So if we're thinking on a per share basis, we have a 9-point gain. And if we're thinking in total, there's one contract. And so that would be 9 points times one contract times 100. And that would be a $900 gain. P.S. I told you, I just think it's easier to multiply once. So I'm telling you, I wouldn't put 900 here and I wouldn't put 1,800 here because I just think that's a mess. Dean's advice is you do things on a per share basis because then I think it's easier. You don't have a bunch of zeros floating all over the place. All right, so let's look at our next one here. Let's look at our next one. That's our max gain. I don't think you should be struggling on the max loss. Anytime you buy an option position, the worst case is you lose your money. By the way, that sounds bad, but it's good. That's the reason to buy the option. You know, I continually say in my lectures, don't be a dumb bear. Here, if you're wrong, you're just going to lose 9 points. You know, I was in this chat room. Everybody in this chat, they're raging bulls. And I said, are there any bears in these woods? And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, everybody here's a raging bull. I'm a bear. Anyways, this lady pops. She goes, I'm a bear. I go, all right. So there's two of us. So now we got to do battle with all these bulls. We got to convince them why they're wrong about this stock. And she said, well, what have you done as a bear? What transaction? I said, well, I haven't done any transactions yet. You know, as a bear, I have a lot of arrows in my quiver and I can't quite decide yet what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something, but right now I have no position. I said, what's your position? She goes, I did the naked calls. I go, well, I can certainly tell you I'm not going to do that. You know, because that's on the risk. I said, I think what I'm going to do is buy the puts. I'm looking here at the 40 puts. The 40 puts cost me 4 points. 10 of them, that's going to cost me $4,000. Dean is wrong. I lose $4,000. End of story. So buying a put is a smarter way to be bearish. Now, the disadvantage of buying the put is I have to be right about 3 things. I have to be right about direction. I'm saying down. I got to be right about how far down. I'm saying at least 9 points down because I got to cover my out-of-pocket cost. I'm saying all this is going to take place between now and expiration. All right, well, if we're going to have putters, we have puttees. This is just a visual representation again. Some people are visual. And so in terms of this visual representation, remember, here's our strike price and then our minus our premium. And we established our break even of 161. And we said that anywhere below that, we're going to be happy. Let me get out my, where did I put it? There it is. And let me just boom. So anywhere below here as a bear, we're going to be happy. Happy bear. And in here, we would lose money, but not our entire premium because our contract would still have intrinsic value. You know, so here we're bearish. And when we go over here, it'll be the opposite, right? Every strategy has its opposite. All right, so if we have putters, we have puttees. So our last transaction, but before we do our last transaction, let's fill out our matrix now in this quadrant. We should now be able to fill out this quadrant. Our max gain is when the stock goes from break even to 0 or break even or strike price less premium to 0, whatever floats your boat. A lot of ways to do that. We should be able to add our bearish arrow that we want this to go down. And we should be able to add our premium, our break even, which is strike price less premium. That is our break even. Let's put that in there. Let's change the color here, make it look stand out a little better. And the reason I think it's particularly good to memorize the matrix is because if I ask you about a long put and you've memorized the matrix, you say, Dean, when you're long a put, you paid a premium, you have a choice to sell the stock, your max gain is break even to 0, max loss is the premium, you're bearish, and your break even is strike price less premium. You may not have any clue what you just said, but it is technically correct. It is technically correct. And P.S., it's not a box with 4 squares. Now, what I mean by it's not a box with 4 squares is every time we cross the quadrant, it's going to be a flip of the gains and the losses, right? So it's going to be arrow up, right? So that's kind of important. And realize that this has every quadrant has a relationship. All right, so our last one to do this evening, our last part is our short put. So What type of order are we going to use to establish a short put position? Which order? This is our order ticket. And then our order tickets at our firm, we have boxes to check. So what box are we checking if we're going to do a short put? Right on. Right on. We're doing an opening, right? Opening. So let's get that there. Boom. And we're doing an opening sale, because opening sales are how we establish or add to a short position. You know, what I'm hoping is it sounds less and less of a foreign language rather than more and more, right? So, you know, hopefully it's sounding less and less of a foreign language rather than more and more. Now, if you're going to follow Dean's method, be careful, because, you know, there's lots of people who've got different ways to do options. But I recommend you have some sort of a process. You know, I totally respect this young lady, because she's so willful. And she goes, Dean, I got my own way of doing things. I go, cool. You know, as long as you're getting right answers, you know, what's the matter? And then, you know, we were talking. I go, whoa, 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 whoa. I got some bad news for you. Your method is not working. This is not yielding correct answers. So, you know, at that point, you need to find a new method. So I like to, particularly on puts, underneath that, say, what am I looking at? I'm looking at an obligation to buy the stock at the strike price, particularly on the puts, because those are the ones that, you know, are kind of upside down for folks. So I'm going to put that there just to remind myself what's going on in this put contract. XP means strike price. If you only remember one thing about our evening, what should you remember? Call up, put down. It's the same break even, long and short. It's just a matter of where you want it in relationship to that break even. Right? So the break even here, I have an obligation to buy the stock, and I wouldn't want to buy the stock unless I thought the stock was going up. Please note, we now have stumbled into another test question. And the test question here we've stumbled into is the other question about the same side of the market. So we're looking at a short put, and we have said that a short put is bullish. You have an obligation to buy the stock, and buying the stock is bullish. And we said this is bullish, right? Because here, you know what this test question is? The same side of the market. Here we have a choice to buy the stock. Here we have an obligation to buy the stock. And so on the test, they say, what is the bullish or buy side of the options market? We would say long calls and short puts. And remember, you're only allowed to have a certain number of contracts on the same side of the market, on the same side of the market. All right, so back to what we're doing. We're doing the break even. And now I'm just going to illustrate that indeed that's the break even. Is that 9 points money out or money in? Is that 9 points money out or money in? That is money in, right? And you have an obligation to buy the stock. It's okay. People get hung up on this all the time. I don't get it. I sell it to buy it. Those are different it's. When you sell a put contract, dollars in, you have an obligation to buy the stock, dollars out. The puts are the ones that throw people for a loop. Please note, again, a recommendation. I don't like to put the option and the stock on the same line, because I like to, you know, be able to look at that. But right, if somebody sticks it to me at 170, I'm the put E, and somebody sticks it to me at 170, and I sell, you know, if I sell at 161, it still works out, right? Because I can afford to take a 9-point hit on the stock. I'm just illustrating that indeed that is the break even. By the way, if you get good at the T, tracking money, you know, which I hope at some point you can track money and you've got contract specifications, you can simply shop your answer set. Right? You do this is called your initial setup, and then you just say, okay, what are they offering me as a break even? Let me plug that in. They're offering 161. Let's see what if I plug that in, what that does. Ding, 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 ding. It makes the columns balance. As we said, nobody does things to break even. Okay, so let's do our max gain. I don't think you should be struggling too much on this. You know, what Dean thinks is not testable, but I think of when I'm short an option that I'm a potential victim. And the best case is I agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes me. Let's try this as test phraseology. Your customer goes short, one Apple, December 170 put at 9, when Apple's at 172. I'm telling you, I'm a jerk, by the way. So heads up, I'm a jerk. What does that 172 have to do with answering the question? What does that 172 have to do with answering the question? Your customer short, it's one Apple, December 170 put at 9, when Apple's, yeah. Now, Rachel, I know you're going to be mad at me because now, after all that, I say, at expiration, Apple remains unchanged. At expiration, Apple remains unchanged. So now that is meaningful, because if it's 170 or higher, the contract will expire worthless, and I get to go neener, neener, neener. The best case scenario is I agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes me, and I keep the money. So that's the best case scenario. All right, let's look at max loss. So max loss, as you recall, is when somebody makes me pay 170, right? If it's lower than 170, I'm going to get exercised. And so somebody can make me pay 170 for the stock. And so what would be the worst time that I would be paying, want to pay 170 for the stock? What's the worst case scenario if I pay 170 for the stock? The worst case scenario is I paid 170 for stock that is now worthless. That's my worst case scenario, is this stock is now worthless. 0. Boom. And so again, the most I can lose is a couple ways to think about it. 170 minus 9 to 0, or 161, the break even, or you could think of it as $16,100. That is our max loss. Now, by the way, it's definable. So I can actually tell you, what that is. All right, so one other thing here. You might want to do a short put as an alternative to a limit order. So right now, Apple's at 172. And Cynthia says, hey, Dean, what's Apple trading at? I say Apple's at 172. She says, Dean, let's put in a buy limit at 169. If we can buy Apple today at 169 or lower, I'd like to do that. I say, okay. I say, listen, before I put in that buy limit for you, Cynthia, I'd like to go over just a couple of things with you. If you put in a buy limit at 169, you may or may not ever buy the Apple stock because, it may never be a trade available at 169 or less. And she goes, well, geez, Dean, I don't know why you're being so rude. I said, well, hold on. Let's say it does go off. So I call you, Cynthia, and I say, hey, I'm giving you a report on your buy limit of Apple at 169. You bought Apple at 169. And Apple goes to 0. You're going to lose $16,900. She goes, again, Dean, I don't know why you're being so rude. I said, well, Cynthia, one thing you might want to consider is to get paid to do something you're already prepared to do. You told me you're prepared to buy Apple at 169. What if I told you, Cynthia, somebody will give you $900 to buy at 170? Why not get paid to do something you're already prepared to do? And if you get exercised, you'd be buying Apple at 170. You got 9, you'd be paying the equivalent, Cynthia, of 191. So a short put can be an alternative to a buy limit order. You might want to get approved to, write puts on stocks you're willing to buy. Mr. Buffett loves writing puts on stocks he's willing to own, like Bank of America or Coca-Cola, whatever the case may be. Rachel, would the max loss be break even to 0? Yep. Is that the same thing as strike price minus premium? Yeah, that's what I meant by you could, however you want to think about this, right? You could think of this as, let's just give you a visual, right? You could think of this, we're on the other side here. So here's our visual of this. And again, it looks like Dean's got to fix this thing. And let's fix it. Boom. Boom. And so here is our visual. Well, let me get this back going here. Current line. Here, I'm just showing you a visual representation of this and our break even. So your point, Rachel, we could think of this. Let's put our break even here. Let's get us a thicker line here. And let's put it in black. So here is our break even of 161. And remember, we want the stock to be above that. We want the Apple to be above that 161. Let's put that over here. And let's put that in blue. And we said that actually that we are bullish when we're short a put. All right, so there's there. And let's put this in green. And let me get out my little tool here. Whoop. Boom. And so plus, anywhere in here, we are winners. And again, here we're a winner because, right, that's our ceiling at 170. But then your point, right, if we're wrong, it goes below here. Not bueno. And that would be our worst case here is at 0. And so your point, we could think of this as when the stock goes from the strike price less the premium all the way to 0. We could think of this as break even to 0, or your point, you could just think of it as break even, however you want to get there. And this is bullish, or puts are bullish. Yeah, okay, I'm with you. We're almost done, Rachel. I told you, I don't know. I err on trying to make these things work. It looks like I should call this a 2-hour lecture for $35 next time, right? And there is the matrix in all its glory. Woohoo! And we said the reason you want to have the matrix is because even if you don't know anything about a short put. I said, what can you tell me about a short put? You say, Dean, when you're short a put, you've received the premium, you have an obligation to buy the stock at the strike price, you're bullish, your max gain is break even, or excuse me, premium, your max loss is break even to 0, your break even is strike price plus premium. I've also superimposed on this matrix where the matrix lines up with the market price. So I'm showing you here, here's the market price of the stock, here's the strike price of the options. So I've superimposed that on the matrix. Woohoo. Okay, well, I told you that was our game. This is what we'll do next Thursday if you join us for next Thursday. Next Thursday, we'll do stock plus an option position. We'll do full hedges that work and hedges that kind of work. So I'm going to show you a long stock and a short call, covered call next week. I'm going to show you a protected put next week, and I'm going to show you how to not be a dumb bear, how to hedge a short stock position. All right, any other questions? Remember, inch by inch. Your Series 7 is a cinch, yard by yard. Your Series 7 is hard. Anybody got any questions? Did we not get any gentlemen joining us? Was it all ladies tonight? The ladies are killing it. No guys?
Ladies man, Dean.
I don't know about that, but that's funny. Okay. All right. Well, ladies, that's all I have for you tonight, unless you got anything else you want to talk about. I appreciate hanging in there. 2 hours is long. I get it. But I was thinking about, I'd be interested in your input. I usually do this as 2 lectures called Nomenclature of Vocabulary, which is the first hour, and then the options, which is the second hour. But I didn't want to make that 2 classes because, you know, you really want to pay $35 for vocabulary. I'm not sure. So, and I think last time, Cynthia, were you in the last version of this option class?
I was, yes.
We didn't do that whole intro. I did that first hour. I didn't do any of that in the last version. So,
no, but I really liked it. I think it was great because it really kind of broke down the language, the vocab, and then giving the examples after. I think it was perfect. It really tied it all.
Oh yeah, because last time I think, Cynthia, we went right into that second part. We did 7 of the thing in that one session. I thought that was a little too much too. So we're still tinkering. So I'm glad that you found this helpful. What I probably do is if we do, by the way, you guys get free repeats next time I put it on the thing. So Cynthia, I don't know if you paid, but you shouldn't have, because you should get it for free. So if you paid me $35, I owe you $35. So you get free repeats is the point, right? So if I do it again, what I would probably do is give you a break, like maybe at the first hour, we could take a 15-minute break and get a soda or whatever and come back and then do the option strategies perhaps, right? Anything else?
So you're saying if you do another options course that the people that were here today can go to?
Yeah. So it's called basic options. So Cynthia, I told you I'm still beta. How much even Kaplan pays me to do classes for him. And so they call like, what is this evening thing? Oh, we're just having fun. It's not competitive. I'm not going to put up a 4-day cram course. I'm just kind of, but anyways, what I was going to say is I'm still trying to figure out what is, what is worthwhile for people who want to add or supplement to whether they're doing Kaplan or STC or past perfect. And is that an hour? Is that 2? And what do they want to talk about? And so, yes, the answer is it might, like Cynthia, I consider this to be the same class that she took. It's not, because I changed it a little bit. But if you see again, I'm trying to do them once a quarter. If you see it again in its basic options, then that will be free to you. And then when you get free office hours, and you get the live stream is always free, but the paid office hour is available as well. And the next session, I wouldn't charge her again because we did covered calls in that last one, but that's actually a separate thing. So if you were in that, you wouldn't be able to get that for free. But when you were in it, then you get the free repeats. And then advanced option strategy, that's probably the one, Natasha, that makes the most sense in terms of having a free repeat. I might have to offer that a little more often, because again, if Natasha, if I start this sequence of 3 Thursdays or 4 Thursdays, and it's kind of jumping a rope and you jump in on the wrong spot, you might not be able to get the cycle, basically, is what that would amount to. Any other comments or questions? I appreciate your feedback, by the way. Cynthia has been very helpful. I don't think I did practice questions last time either, Cynthia. I did a couple here. Did we? I don't think we did practice questions in the last version either. So
practice questions would help. Especially for the spreads and straddles.
Well, I know that's on your mind. Yeah, we would definitely. Okay. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, guys. So thanks for sticking in there for the couple hours. This will now be on the channel as a free repeat, so you can watch it there. I know I gave you permission to record, and some of you did. That's fine too. So, whatever way you want to access it. And I made a deal that I would send you these slides. That's a little harder for me to do, but I will do that if you want. Send me a request and I'll get that for you. Okay. That's Mom calling. I'm just finishing up, Mom. Okay. See you in a bit. Nope, I'm fine. Bye. Okay. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Thank you.
You bet. Remember, what's my mantra? Inch by inch, options are cinch. Yard by yard, options are hard.